cash. Tons of it. I mean, what do you think we're doing out here in the middle of the desert? It's all this money.
I was always fascinated by Las Vegas, and always wanted to write about Las Vegas. And then suddenly, as always in these cases, a trial took place of skimming by the Chicago and the Milwaukee wise guys, and these men, and the Teamster Pension Fund that had put up all this money for the casinos. And the whole thing was laid out in court. And here, suddenly, I found a great story about the mob and their connections in the Teamsters Pension Fund, buying a casino with a front man, putting a brilliant gambler in charge of it. The whole thing should have been magical, and the whole thing collapsed, and it was all real. It was a great story, and I just jumped on it.
Nick pitched this idea of Las Vegas in the 1970s to the Universal Brass, the front office, and they got very excited about it. And so the way I could remember it, when I did Last Temptation of Christ at Universal, actually it was an independent film picked up by Universal, that led to working on a number of projects. Then I went off to do Age of Innocence. And then I owed a film to Universal. And at the same time, having had such a good experience with Nick Pileggi on Goodfellas, I thought it would be interesting, and this Universal thought it would be interesting too, to revisit the genre that we had kind of explored fully in Goodfellas, but take it to another level, and take it to a national level in a way, as Las Vegas sort of representing America and representing, even in a sense, representing Hollywood in a way.
It's the kind of material that everybody wants Marty to do, which I think sometimes, he's unhappy with because he wants to stretch and do other things. And, people want him to do movies about the neighborhood and the guys and the characters that he just directs so well.
There's no doubt about it that it's a kind of a sequel to Goodfellas. And not direct sequel, but it deals with that world, but only on a bigger scale. And more a film of excess. A world of excess.
DJ 19, second base, a beard.
I was working on the book, and a lot of these people were not cooperative, including the Ace Rothstein character. The real Ace Rothstein wasn't cooperative, he was cooperative. He's a brilliant man, but what did he need with a book? He is very wealthy, very smart, and he didn't need his ego played around with in such a way. But then word got out that Marty and I were going to be doing a casino movie next, and Marty had mentioned Bob would play one of the parts. And somehow that got in Variety or some newspaper, because this guy's in Florida, and I got a call from him. And he said, are you guys turning this into a movie? I said, well, let's, if we can get a book and we get a story. And he said, and then I see or I hear that Robert De Niro is going to play the part. I said, yeah, that looks like it. Robert De Niro, he said, is the greatest actor of his generation. I said, well, I'm not going to argue with you. And then he said, could I meet Robert De Niro? I said, of course you can, because I realized this was an opening. And so I told Marty and talked to Bob De Niro, and he got on a plane and went right down to see this guy, Ace, in Florida. And they really hit it off. And when the movie was announced, suddenly it became easier to get information for the book. And people who slammed doors in my faces, hung up, had their lawyers threaten me, all of a sudden they're calling me up to meet Bob De Niro or this Sharon Stone or Joe Pesci or Marty Scorsese. So, I'm the writer, I'm there, and all of a sudden it opened up. So I immediately started doing all of the material we had for the book, put it into the movie.
Nick hadn't actually finished writing the book, so it was a much different process developing Casino, because with Goodfellas, he had the book finished, and it was an easier process adapting from a book which had a real structure. And in this case, it was like a pile of notes.
I had already outlined the book to some degree, and Marty had gone over the outline. And we try to say, what is the narrative storyline here? And then I'll come up with a version, and then he'll come up with a version, and then we kind of move it around until we have the structure. And once he knew what the narrative of the book was, and everything that was going to be in the book, he then was able to juggle it around in his head to make it a movie. I mean, the book, if you go back and look at the book is a basic straight narrative. It's basically chronologic. It might jump around a little bit, but not that much. The movie is a wilder journey.
You ever do anything like that again, I'll fucking kill you. You can spot these assholes by watching the way they bet. Like this guy. He's betting lavender chips at 500 each with only one little problem. He's always guessed right.
It's based on riffs, in a way. You know, men talking, telling stories, going off on tangents and digressions. And how far could you go off on a digression and still bring it in, back in it, cut it to a certain point as fast, and then bring it back into the main line of the narrative. And that's always, some people have agreed that happens in the film, and others said that's one of the problems with the film. It didn't happen. But it's a style that we kind of started in Goodfellas, and Nick and I. And so Nick and I took that style that we developed and took it to its furthest limits of shaping with many asides taken through the narrative by the use of voiceover.
Voiceover is key, but it's got to be real voiceover. And I talked to these guys. I got them on tape, and you can't write that. You can't write the way a guy out of the Chicago gangs talks.
Here was the perfect front man. I mean, what the fuck else could he be? He didn't know too much. He didn't want to know too much, especially that the bosses made the Teamsters lend him the money. He wanted to believe the Teamsters gave him all that fucking money because he was smart.
So when you've got that body of dialogue, how can you not use it? It's priceless. And so we made it so that it was a part of the narrative.
What am I going to do? Go back home and start a war? I mean, Nicky's a made guy, and I'm not. I can't do that.
Careful, gaming.
But as I got more voices, and as these people began to open up a little bit, in the end, we had one voiceover, then we realized we had a couple.
Ace was so fucking worried about his casino, he forgot what we were doing out here in the first place.
There's even one line of voiceover from Frank Vincent's character that breaks the whole rhythm, but it's a very important line.
There's one thing about these old-timers. They don't like any fucking around with the other guy's wives. It's bad for business. So I lied.
And so I thought it was important to bring this third character, minor character, and then hear his voice in his mind. That's the only one you do in the film.
And background action, action! FBI! Don't be alarmed. We have business to do.
I think the big highlights of it are true. Of course, it's hard to sometimes always stick totally to the truth because it's just not cinematic, and you know, sometimes it happened on Tuesday, but in our movie it's going to happen on Friday. And some people will actually be very offended by that and upset by it. It was Nick's job to make Ace understand and to get him to approve, because he did read the script and he did have to approve the script, which always makes studios very nervous and writers very nervous.
The minute I finished working on the movie, I immediately went back to the book. And I was typing every minute, and my editor, Michael Corda, was unbelievably helpful because it was really murderous. Because I had to get the book out before the movie. That's hard if they're already shooting the movie in Las Vegas when I'm still typing. I can't imagine the mob getting to a better position than they were in Vegas in the 70s before they lost it all. It's Paradise Lost, really.
Between Nicky, Ginger, me and my license.
Did you not promise me that I would have a fair hearing?
Paradise. We managed to really fuck it all up.
There was no doubt that with the casting we created those roles. It'd be perfect to try one more time and to have one more statement made about this lifestyle. Well, working with the group from Goodfellas, I mean, we had gotten into a routine, really, and this was a very relaxed way of working that we had between Joe and Bob De Niro, and then Sharon was brought into that.
I don't know, I guess we feel close in certain ways, and we rarely have a disagreement about anything. I mean, we work together, it's like just about getting it done, and very much respect and trust each other's judgment about stuff. And Joe and I have our own special, sort of like brothers in a way, and Marty has his relationship with Joe. We are all very close in our own ways.
If it goes bad for me, it's going to go bad for a lot of people.
Yeah,
understand?
forget about your fucking license. I plant my own flag out here. You ain't going to need a fucking license. It's very easy to work with Bob. You know, maybe some other people back up sometimes, but from the first time I met him, I just never backed up. And I found it relaxing to work with him the way he works. So maybe that's what Marty sees, and also when we talk about projects and what we're doing, maybe the input that I give Marty is also a lot of the same input that Bob gives, and we like Marty's ideas the same way, and we take direction from him. We really get enthusiastic. So it's a good a good working tree.
Ace Rothstein was a hell of a handicapper. I can tell you that. I was so good that whenever I bet, I could change the odds for every bookmaker in the country. I'm serious. I had it down so cold.
The Rothstein character, based on a guy named Frank Lefty Rosenthal, was so precise and so guarded and so cautious in his life.
I always feel that it's more interesting to meet the person. Even though it's a fictionalized thing, you get ideas from that person. And even if you have to change them for legal reasons, for whatever reason, you can always make them work on another way. And not many times do you have the chance to talk to people. They're dead or this or that or whatever. So you're lucky when you do have somebody who's like a first-hand, was there, or the actual person. And I met him a few times and spoke to him a lot on the phone.
He was a very methodical, scientific person, genius at what he was doing with numbers and how to make things run and make more money. But there's the fatal flaw. He decides on making a life with a woman whom he knows does not necessarily love him.
I knew all the stories, but I didn't give a fuck. I'm Sam Rothstein, I said. I can change you.
That was the problem they had. She was an independent woman. She was not. She had been making money and earning money on her own and was resistant to anything he tried to impose.
You didn't answer your beeper.
I threw it away.
You threw it away?
There's the element of pride. The pride that he could take up with a woman whom everybody wants, by the way, who is an extraordinary woman based on all the researchers there, all the people we're talking, old cops and wise guys and gambling denizens and all these people, they always had great words for this woman. They loved her.
Nice. I told you I was hot today.
I was asked to audition for the role a couple of times, and Marty didn't show up for the audition. I forget what happened the first time that he didn't come. And then the second time, they said he's on an Amtrak train and he's coming in, and then they called me and they said the Amtrak train broke down. And I was like, oh, yeah, right. And so when they called me again and said, would I come and see them, I said no. And then they called me back later and said, Sharon, where are you? And I was at this Italian restaurant. They said, he really wants to see you. And I'm like, no, he really doesn't. And so I'm sitting at this restaurant and having dinner, and I look up, and there's Marty standing at my dinner table. And I thought I was going to have a heart attack. And he's like, I really do want to see you for this part. And I really have seen all your movies. And I'm like, yeah, I bet, especially King Solomon's Mines, because that was a big winner. He's like, and I really did. I saw that too. And he sat down and he talked to me for like an hour about everything I'd ever done and what he thought about me as an actor and my work. And he said, would I come and audition? Which I did. And I went to New York and I auditioned. And it was a very peculiar thing to audition for this part of Ginger because she's so wild. And it's a fine line to tread because you want to do the part, but you don't want to beat the crap out of De Niro because is he going to give you the job if you beat him up in the room? So I didn't think I quite did a great audition because I kept withholding in the work. And then I got this call that Marty and Bob were coming to California and they wanted to see me again. And I went into this hotel room and they said, so what'd you think of your audition? I said, I thought I sucked. And I said, because I didn't want to beat you up, and I have to really, to be Ginger, you have to go berserk. And they talked to me at length about would I really let it rip? And of course, that's all I had to hear.
Sharon was in a boys' club, and she was between Bob and Marty and Joe. And I felt a little bad for her because it was all men in the movie, essentially.
It was like Bob and Marty and Joe and Sharon the potted plant.
It was very difficult because there was no relationship there, so there was no shorthand, and there was no, immediate trust.
And I had to really push and nag and annoy Marty. I just follow him around and go, Marty, 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 Marty. Marty, look, Marty, I want to ask you something. Marty, 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 what do you think about this? Marty, Marty. And I did it to him so much with my notes and my questions and my stuff till finally he just turned around and went, Sharon, what do you want? And I said, I want you to push me more than you. Oh, it's so emotional for me because it was just my dream. So, God, it makes me cry still. It makes me cry because he gave it to me.
She really came stood up to the challenge, Sharon Stone. She really seemed to have something special, particularly with that character, and she was ready to push through as an actress and go further than she felt in what she had done before.
I think that when I did Basic Instinct, people thought that's just who I was. A bisexual serial killer was like who I was in my spare time. But when I said to Marty, I really just want you to push me. I want you to make me be more than you really think I can be. And when I told him that's what I wanted him to do, I think he was shocked. And he just was sort of stunned. And he said, okay, I will. And then he did. And once I had the permission to really go for it, it was so thrilling. And Marty really let me play. Like when she ran away from home with Jimmy, I'd say, I think she should cut off her hair and get a great big boob job. And Marty's like, mm-hmm. Now, how would she do that? Sharon, how do you see her doing that? I'd say, well, Marty, I bought these. And I'd have these big prosthetic boobs that I had ordered from a company that made breasts for women that had mastectomies. And I gave Marty the boobs. And so while we're having this conversation, Marty had the fake boobs in his hand, and he's saying, I see.
The real generosity there was between, De Niro helping her in the scenes, being there for her. And so we lay it all out so that she felt comfortable. And in some scenes, particularly when it's revealed that she's been having an affair with Nicky, and then they're in the bedroom and she's crying, and he tells her, do you realize what can happen? I mean, that scene, we were just, it was so quiet in the place, and we just simply made her feel okay and comfortable. And she was slowly, somehow becoming this, becoming the emotion, just lying there on the ground or something. And then we just turned the camera on without her knowing and just keep talking. And so it had to be very careful, we wanted to get, and she was really something.
What if he won't stop?
I can back him off. There is no one more exquisite to work for than Scorsese. It just doesn't happen. He's not like sitting over there going like, fabulous, we got it. He's in there getting it with you. He's sitting on the ground. He's walking with you. He's telling you his stories, no matter how revealing they may be about him. Whatever it takes, he isn't scared of this thing. You could be in Cooksville. He'll hang with you. I'm in a phone booth at one point having this kook conversation with Bob. And I just said, Marty, I can't have you over there. I need you where I can touch you. I'm really scared. Marty sat on the dirt by my feet outside the phone booth so that I could go to Crazyville, but so that I could see him and touch him. And it's so thrilling and so rewarding. Do you think if I came back, do you think you could forgive me?
Don't forget, if you're challenged, if he asks anything, deny everything. You understand?
Joe Pesci. He played such a scary guy in this movie. You're scared when he's in the room. It's not like Joe's playing that character. He's that guy to such a degree that you would do anything to make it work. And I think if it had been anybody else, it would have probably been too much. But I trust him, and I just adore him. He's just a phenomenal talent.
You're fucking warned. Don't ever go over my fucking head again, you motherfucker, you. Well, I think this character in the movie would be considered a bad guy. sure he had some good sides too. We all have that, but we didn't get to show that much of it in this movie.
Visita mi
Sometimes we
canal.
like to do that, you know.
Well, Marty and Joe have another kind of relationship. I think there's a lot more humor there. I think Joe makes things funnier, and I think Marty lets him go with that, and I think it's really important because Joe really plays the unsympathetic guys.
You bald-headed Jew prick. What's that? That's my business. That's what I do.
I want you to understand that I am looking out for you in this thing, okay? You're gonna get yours back. You're gonna get back first, okay?
I think James Woods, my feeling is that he accepted that role because he had worked with Sharon before. And it was just great to have him, and I think he just wanted to be part of the movie.
I have to go get my hair carnubed. I gotta go.
It was a fun few days having him there.
We have such a fun relationship and such a witty relationship. And with him, I loved the dynamic of getting the little girl who played my daughter to just torment him. So between takes, I would just say, you know, go hit him with your purse. And I got her to bug him to create that friction.
Things are very fucked up down there, you know.
Working with Martin Scorsese has been probably the biggest career boost any actor could have, because anything else I do, that's always made a reference to.
They asked me again about you and the Jew's wife.
Yeah, what'd you tell him?
I told him I didn't know nothing.
The real guy, Frank Collada, the character I played, he was on the set every day.
Frank Collada was our technical advisor, and he was in the witness protection program. And it made things truthful to the point where sometimes it was a little frightening to realize that this is a person who actually did witness this kind of behavior.
He would tell us how to take the safe out of the wall, or how to do this, or how to do that. And at the end of the day, we would go back to our hotels. We had the vans, but he would always say, come on, take a ride. I'll drive you back to the hotels. So we would open the car doors, open the trunk, open the hood, make sure there was no bombs. But we only took a ride with him like once or twice.
And toward the end of shooting, he actually had a part in the movie.
In the killing, in that scene, Marty looks over at our technical advisor, and he goes like that. He said, no, it's no good. I said, what do you mean? No, it's not the way it's done. And so he tried to explain it to the actor, how it's done. And Marty is watching him explain it. He says, no, you do it. So Marty got the technical advisor to actually do the murder. And when you see it in the movie, you are seeing how it's really done.
The old man said, maybe your friend should give in. And when the old man says maybe, that's like a papal bull.
Casino got all those great comedians who were so recognizable to the audience. And, you know, comedians are very often really great dramatic actors. And Don Rickles had done dramatic roles before.
He's over at the 21 table.
He tried to stay true to who these characters really were. I mean, you've got Don Rickles in a movie, and we don't give him a Don Rickles scene. I mean, if you go to see Don Rickles in a Las Vegas movie, you would think at some point, even at a coffee table, he would do some shtick. But he doesn't. You could have hired anybody to do that. You didn't need Don Rickles to do that. But Marty wanted Don Rickles anyway.
He has to make a call, just check the house. Next thing you know, he gives you a call, bring over a gun.
What does it matter?
Visita mi canal.
Directly, stop the losing.
I don't know what's happening.
Of course, the off-camera humor was constant from him, and I have wonderful footage of Rickles just ripping into De Niro, and De Niro loving every minute, of course, with his savage humor.
Man wants to throw a party. Cocktails for everybody. Rickles blew it.
He's a really remarkable man, and he represents that attractive side, to me, of that world and that sort of thing. And just his presence in the film is very important, because he's the real thing. Not a real gangster. I'm talking about the part of the entertainment world that was owned by, ultimately, I guess, crime groups in Chicago, New York, or whatever, who bought those hotels.
He's gonna love being alone, being thrown out of a car. You ever feel alone when you're thrown out of a car?
He's weak, he's incompetent, he jeopardizes the whole place. There's not much more I can do for him.
You have gotten me there. Old Don is as useless as tits on a board.